Orc, the bardic paladin, who sings and plays again. He tells the tales of glory and weaves a magic story. He'll join you at your table and ask you to share a fable. Heroes of humble origin, villains who must be fought again. No matter their skill or prowess, the people in life are countless. So we pray you heed our request. Enjoy this tale of sidekicks and side quests. And side quests.
Episode 96. Ramman and Katniss, the Hexblood Stonecasters. Welcome to Sidekicks and Side Quests, the Dungeons & Dragons podcast that helps to put humans back into humanity and breathe life into your campaign NPCs with backstory and bravado. That's right, we're building a world, one character at a time. I am your host, Kurt Krenwelge, the Bardic Paladin, and I'll be joining Dane Fox-McGraw and Benjamin Huffman's table in the Levitating Platter. Hello everyone and welcome to another exciting episode of Sidekicks and Side Quests, still the best unofficial, in big bold letters, unofficial Dungeons & Dragons podcast, in my humbly biased opinion. Before I introduce my guests, I'd like to go ahead and give a shout out to my first sponsor, Plus One EXP. Tony Vicinda is the mastermind behind this mastercraft of beard balms, game design, and community building. He's got beard balms named after all the basic stats from D&D, so get a can, apply it to your face, and smell the sweet aroma and the sweet victory that comes along with increased strength, dexterity, charisma, and more. Beards and Beyond is the indie RPG that helped to launch this entire brand, but Tony's collaborated and developed several other projects including Repugnant, iToaster, Down We Go, Through the Void, Vamp Nebula, and Brandstanding. If you support Plus One EXP either by buying something on their website or going to tonyplusone.itch.io, it all helps funnel into the Plus One Forward program, which seeks to support additional indie tabletop content creators to continue making awesome stuff. So I would highly encourage you to follow Tony and Plus One EXP on all of the socials, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and even their Discord server, in order to keep up with all the various projects that are being worked on, as well as upcoming interviews, one-shots, and actual plays of some of these other amazing indie TTRPGs. And if you don't mind, when you go on over to plus1exp.com and you see that affiliate code box, type in Randolph when you're buying a beard balm or beard RPG in order to get some savings on your purchase at no extra cost to you. Again, that code is Randolph at checkout on the website plus1exp.com. All right, and now it's time to introduce my guests. We've got double the trouble this week. So I turn the microphone over and ask, who is it that you are and what is it that you do?
Hi, my name is Benjamin Huffman. I'm a co-host of Dispel Magic, and I also run the Sterling Berman Adventuring Company.
And my name's Dane. I'm a voice actor, a podcaster, and an improviser. And I also co-host Dispel Magic.
Yeah,
but that's
awesome.
it. But that's the only one.
Okay.
That's it that I do for that.
Are you sure you're not involved in any other podcast? Because it was my understanding that you did Dungeons and Dragon types as well, or was that like a guest spot or something?
No, I am current long-running member of the actual play Pokemon podcast Dungeons and Dragon types, where I play QT, the Pokemon Ranger.
Awesome. So for those of us not in the know, because it's woefully and tearfully shameful that you guys haven't exploded even onto a larger fan base than you rightfully deserve. But can you tell us what it is that Dispel Magic is about? Like, what's the premise? Why should we be listening to it?
Yeah, there's it's really funny because there's something that we say at the start of every episode. And I literally can't think of what it is now. The short.
We overthink the magic of Dungeons and Dragons.
It's not that anymore.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the basic idea of the show. Each episode, we look at a discrete piece of magic and we kind of think through what the actual setting implications would be. So if Raise Dead were a spell in the world, what would that do to the world that spell exists? We're not thinking about real Dungeons and Dragons settings that actually exist. We're thinking about how they should be if they were to take into account the magic that exists in the game.
I consider Dispel Magic primarily a world building podcast where we're making the logical leaps to like how a world would look if you could talk to animals, if you could raise dead. And we're kind of creating our own world, kind of like you're doing here, one NPC at a time.
Yeah, no, I do enjoy that aspect of Dispel Magic. Like you're saying, very world building. And it's even had me take pause and be like, oh, yeah, well, I've never encountered this spell before. And if I'm going to be having players that are going to have access to the spells, what does that actually literally mean for my game? If all of a sudden they come up with some idea of like, yeah, I'm just going to do call lightning into this battery of things and I'm going to store all this energy to be able to use it for like a necromancer's experiment or something like that. I'm like, I didn't even know. Okay, I guess you can do that. Sure, why not?
Well, and that's one of the things that we've noticed is that if you logically think through, if all of these things do exist, the world breaks like almost immediately.
Completely.
It's really wild how short a walk that is to like typical fantasy setting to nothing is the same as it was.
Yeah.
Right, because the Wishinati, right? They're the ones that are controlling
wish
the
alone.
world.
Yeah, I think the Wishinati are the only ones keeping everything in line and making sure that the world doesn't completely blow up with all these bizarre applications of spells.
Awesome. Which I think as well, also to give an opportunity as well for Dungeons and Dragon types. Can you tell us a little bit about that podcast as well? Like, how has that show been and working out? I haven't had the opportunity myself to listen, but perhaps a tease and a tidbit or something.
Her Dungeons and Dragon types is the anime. We're playing as close to the anime as we can, and it is over the top and silly and ridiculous. My Why Not Astro, when he casts Safeguard, sends spectral Stenson hats to all of his buddies on the battlefield. We're on our third system. We're rolling with the punches. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. Check it out if you like actual plays, and especially if you like Pokemon. Awesome. And if you like to hear a weird kind of a Sam Elliott kind of character come out every now and then.
Where's the beef?
That's right. That's right.
Beef, it's what's for dinner.
Well, and you know, QT Tyson or Quincy Tyson as he goes by, he's just trying to save all the cutest Pokemon he can because cares about those cute little Pokemon.
Amazing. So I think it's a pretty easy segue into the next question of, do you currently or have you ever played D&D before?
Nope.
Lots. Lots in the past, lots in the present. I'm sure lots in the future.
Benjamin was my first DM in Dungeons and Dragons proper. I've been playing role-playing games from schoolyard where we just kind of pretended to be different superheroes, right? My best friend Matt and I would just be like, you've got these powers and I got these powers. And then we didn't have access to any RPGs really, so we kind of made our own where we were all elves and then had some dice and things like that. And then our first real one was Rifts. From nothing.
I've never played it. No.
It's kind of a post-apocalyptic, incredibly imbalanced, hilarious game in the distant future. No, Benjamin introduced me to Dungeons and Dragons, and then during the pandemic, all of my social interactions were replaced with 6 different D&D games. So I've been doing that for the last 3 years.
Wow. And yeah, you're a bit of a designer, aren't you, Mr. Benjamin, as well?
I am, yeah, and actually that's a habit I picked up very early on. I think the box that I got was called First Quest way back when. I think that would have been probably the mid 90s. I was somewhere between 10 and 13, and I graduated onto AD&D, and then I was already making original classes by AD&D. Last time I was home visiting my parents, I actually found The Phantom was the first class I ever wrote.
That sounds good.
And it was kind of like a thief magic user type of deal.
Bears no relation to the Pulp Adventure Hero or anything like that. Or
I didn't know
the
of
Sunday comic strips.
I didn't know of the Phantom, so it's possible there's some kind of overlap.
Billy Zane had not created his masterpiece yet.
Right.
But yeah, and I've pretty much been doing it, some form of game design consistently ever since then. I moved into other tabletop games for a while and then kind of came back to TTRPGs about 7-8 years ago. And that's become a gigantic part of my life.
The Pugilist, ever heard of it?
Yeah, I was going to say, didn't Phil's character in the MCDM Chain of Akron start off as a pugilist before he switched over?
He sure did. Yeah, he started as a pugilist. I know that there's a pugilist on an actual play with 3 black halflings right now too. And yeah, it's been an honor. I'm really thrilled to be on. Well, to not to be on, but to have
In a way,
my work.
Benjamin, you're on those shows.
It's an
You're
honor.
secretly one of the NPCs just milling around in the background in idle animation.
That should be what I tell people, is that they have to put an NPC that is my license
contractual obligation
Yeah.
in the very minor line in the contract.
But as big of an honor as it is to be on actual plays, I get this is also embarrassing to admit, but I get fan mail about the way that people have experienced stuff I've written, and that's like my favorite part about it, because it's just really cool and humbling to be a part of hundreds or thousands of people's games who I'll never meet them, they'll never meet me, but I had some kind of positive impact on their game. It's awesome.
Not only are you developing independent content, for yourself, for your livelihood, but you also do stuff for your own Dispel Magic Patreon page, isn't that right?
Yeah, we write. I write a few original spells every month for that. Sometimes kind of just inspired by it. Like, when we did the episode on Magic Mouth, I was really shocked to find out how much you could dismantle everything you would expect about a fantasy setting with that one spell. You can replicate some really advanced technologies just using Magic Mouth. And so a lot of the new spells I write are kind of aimed at replicating similar anachronistic
Effects.
technologies.
Yeah, I think I remember listening to that episode and you were describing like, oh yeah, I found these posts and people are describing like ones and zeros and coming up with a computer, which that just boggles my mind of how you would be able to do that. But it's like, okay, I guess if you want to go through the trouble of creating the very first computer in a medieval society, well,
Yeah.
Congratulations. You're like Doc Brown hiding the DeLorean in the abandoned mine shaft, waiting for someone to come along to get the part you need to fix it.
You need a lot of Jaden Honeycomb and a lot of time, but yes, you can make a computer using Magic Mouth.
Well, certainly this podcast is called Sidekicks and Sidequests, so maybe not magic, but Sidekicks and Sidequests is what we got. So we like to ask, who is one of your favorite sidekick characters, one of your favorite NPCs, whether they're from an RPG, a video game, movie, film, television, etc., and why is this character your favorite sidekick, your favorite NPC?
I gotta say, I think Benjamin Huffman's my favorite sidekick from the podcast Dispel Magic. He's just really great right there by my side when on that podcast.
You are definitely the sidekick.
Am I?
Yes, you are definitely the sidekick. I hate to break it to you.
Agree to disagree.
Might have to run a poll.
They might have to put up a Twitter poll. All kidding aside, I would say that probably Reboot, the old Canadian CG show. It's one of my favorite shows, and it's kind of a duo sidekick of Enzo and his dog,
the little kid, right?
The little kid.
Yeah, okay, I remember him.
Yeah, and the dog is just super strong and can just pick up anything in its giant chompers, so that's hilarious. And they get into hijinks and subvert expectations constantly.
Kind of like the Speed Racer sort of influence with the little kid and the monkey or something like that.
Sure,
Like Speed
yeah.
Racers trying to run races, and meanwhile, those
If
two
the
are getting
monkey
into
could
shenanigans.
throw a car across a city.
Okay, then.
Yeah. It's great. It's great. It's a great show.
I'm gonna be doing a lot of repping of JRPGs today. When I was given this idea thought, I was having a really hard time, and then I remembered Aerie from Bravely Default. So Bravely Default was a game for the 3DS, I don't know, probably a decade ago, maybe more. It's hard to keep track as the years go by.
Time doesn't exist.
But the subtitle for Bravely Default was Fairy Flies, and Aerie kind of leads you, like she's with you from the start of the game or very near the start of the game, and she's sort of an in-game tutorial and also the one kind of keeping you on track, sort of explaining the metaphysics of what's happening in the game. And then like when you get to the real ending of the game, it shows the subtitle again and some of the letters fade away and it changes from Fairy Flies to Aerie Lies. and she's
Oh.
revealed to be one of the villains of the game instead. And I
Oh.
really loved that use because it used like a common trope and then had a really fun twist to it, which I thought was a great use of a sidekick.
And then same thing as far as side quests are concerned. What's been one of your favorite side quests? Whether it's been an RPG, a video game, movie, film, television, etc., minor event in history, the gamut. And why has this been one of your favorite side quests?
I have 2, maybe 3 answers. Let's see how fast I get them out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jam through them.
All right. The first one is that I would just say that Final Fantasy 14, in terms of the naming conventions for its side quests, they're like all puns. And if you read my game design, you'll definitely find I am a little too preoccupied with wordplay when I write. And so that just really speaks to me to have like literally every side quest name be a joke. I just adore that. The second thing is Octopath Traveler, where when I was thinking about it, I was like, oh yeah, there's this cool optional side quest at the end where you can fight this big boss. And then I realized that actually the way Octopath Traveler works, the entire game is a side quest, and this optional ending is actually the main story. Because because in Octopath Traveler, there's 8 different characters, and each character has 4 chapters to resolve their own story. But those are really the side quests that are happening while this other event is happening through side quests in the game that culminates in this woman like sacrificing somebody to summon a demon lord. But that's all optional. You could play the entire game and only ever play the main storyline, which is actually the side quests. And because the side quests are actually, it's anyway.
It's getting into like Stanley Parable territory or something.
Yeah,
like
that's right.
So I love that.
What's your third one?
Okay, my third one is in my own games. A side quest I love to throw in is the players hearing the sound of a young child crying out in the like they're camping somewhere in the hillsides or the mountains. There's a young child crying. They go out to investigate, and it's a 6-foot tall person, and they approach it, and it's like a hill giant toddler.
Oh.
And so then they're responsible for this hill giant toddler who's like capable of dealing a lot of damage, but like also is a toddler, and they should probably intervene and help. But then also that means taking it back to their hill giant parents, who might be really ticked off that these adventurers are wandering around with their toddler. So like there's some like moral complexity to it.
It's a delicate.
Yeah.
It's not just a one.
And there's danger, but there's not for sure danger. Like maybe if we approach it in the right way, it'll all turn out okay. So I like to throw that because I feel like that's a good character development side quest to throw at people.
Curveball. I got a hot take for my favorite one. I really love the game Kingdom Hearts.
Okay.
And my favorite part of that game was most people's least favorite part of that game, the gummy ship, where you're flying between the different worlds. And people try and go as fast. They just don't really care generally about getting there. But I played more of the gummy ship quests than I did maybe the regular. That's hyperbole. But I really enjoyed it. Building your own ship, blasting Heartless out of the ether sphere, saving King Mickey. It's a good game. It's a good game.
And now we come to the pièce de résistance of the personal interview section. What are you passionate about and why?
You got one, Benjamin? Are you passionate about things? Do you got passion in your life?
Dane and I talk a lot about how much I overcommit to stuff.
The thing is, Benjamin's passionate about anything he does.
Yeah, I actually have to be really careful about what I give my attention to, because it will very quickly become an obsession.
Scope creep. It's real with Benjamin.
Yeah. You know, I made a couple things for D&D 7 years ago, and now I run a business and a podcast and a store, and I have to be very careful. I basically don't start TV shows because if I start them and I like it at all, I'm going to have to watch the whole thing, and then I need to set aside like a week.
So you're passionate about passion. You're a passioner.
If I had to name one thing, I would say I'm passionate about game design. I could not stop designing games, even if there was nothing else in it for me. That's just the way my brain is wired now, and it would happen
naturally.
Okay.
As an actor and big silly goofball, I think character development, character arcs, and that's part of storytelling, right? I'd imagine anyone you have on this podcast is pretty passionate about storytelling in one way or another. But
Yeah. Common answer for sure.
yeah. But specifically seeing how particular character changes and grows over time and why, that's what I'm super interested in and what I'm passionate about, especially in the D&D sphere.
So it's like finding the humanity in the characters. Because obviously, you know, it's like one thing to have like a video game character or watching a show and you just like, oh, they're just a character. It's like, it's not anything real. But then,
Right.
like, when you are the character inhabiting that character's mind and thoughts and feelings and watching those change and grow over time, it's like, oh, it's like I'm getting to be a human all over
Yeah,
again.
I like finding those moments and sitting in them and understanding them and sharing them with whoever else I'm playing with. So
All right. Well, we've learned so much about Benjamin and Dane that I think it's time we now head into a segment that I like to call NPC creation. NPC creation is brought to you by you, the podcast audience, and our patrons from Patreon. Now is the time to give a shout out to our comfortable patrons and above with a loud hurrah. So to you, Katie Downey, Ansa Jablinski, and my parents, we say cheers. Again, this shout out is for patrons who donate $2 or more a month. These folks are my highest tier patrons, the wealthy level patrons. So that means that they are able to add an element of chance to our random tables in NPC creation, which we might get to use here today. If you want to join the cheapest podcast Patreon community out there, check the show notes below, go to my podcast website, or just go directly to patreon.com/sidekicks and sidequests to find out more about our 3 tiers, $1, $2, $4 a month, and help us to expand our operations at the Levitating Platter in this demiplane and worlds beyond. All right. So as the name goes, this is the part of the show where we make up an NPC. And so if I'm not mistaken, we're going to be creating 2 NPCs with the roll of the dice.
sure, let's get going.
And I guess as we're going along, we'll just kind of naturally discover what the relationship between the 2 characters is. Or did you have some sort of idea going into it?
Maybe they do a Magic Mouth show together.
Oh, interesting. So they're performers
Yeah, well, like they record
onto Magic Mouth.
Yeah, like basically a podcast. But
We never
performed with
talked
Magic
about
Mouth.
podcasts with Magic Mouth.
Yeah, but you could do a
You
podcast.
could do a
with Magic
podcast
Mouth.
with Magic Mouth.
All right, so we're going to roll randomly and work our way through that process. So the first question we like to answer is, what is the name of our character? And we can generate that randomly by rolling a D20.
I'm going first. 6.
6. Okay. And then Benjamin, just to make sure we don't roll the same number.
12.
12. Okay. So, Dane, with a 6, your answer was provided by previous guest, Dr. Paul Guestwicki. Del Ramman is the name.
El Ramman.
Del, and then Ramman. And then with a 12 for Benjamin, your name was provided by previous guest, Stephanie Jones, Katniss. So Del Ramman and Katniss.
Mm-hmm.
And the next
Del Cat.
And then the next thing we roll for is the ancestry of our character. We determine this with a D100 or a 2D10 effect.
Oh boy, I gotta find my other. There we go.
That's 40.
40, okay. Deep Scion, which we did have recently. Now, I know we've done this with pairs of characters before. We can roll those independent, and it's like, okay, that's who they are. Or if you want them to be the same, maybe Benjamin rolls, and then you're like, oh, I like that better than what I've got. And then it's like, okay, you're just a pair of that or whatever.
Okay, yeah, let's give this a roll and see what else we come up with. 89.
89 as I scroll down the list. Oh, okay. Hexbloods. So you could be one of
I've
you.
never
could be
even
a-
heard of a Hexblood. What's a
Yeah.
Hexblood?
I believe the Hexblood comes from the Ravenloft Van Richter's guide, and it's like you have influence of like hag ancestry in
Oh.
your makeup.
I'm
That's
definitely
perfect.
I'm definitely staying that. but
Yeah.
I think you should join me on Hexblood.
Yeah, I'll definitely be a Hexblood as well.
Okay.
That makes a lot of sense.
Okay. All right. Excellent. So we got a pair of Hexbloods, Del Ramman and Katniss, the Hexbloods. Okay. The next thing we need to determine is, what is the job or role in society for your characters? Again, could be the same thing of like you each roll independent, or you both roll and then figure out which the better thing of the two.
What
And
die-
you determine this with a D10. Sorry.
Oh, D10. Yeah. 1.
Okay. Ooh, very apt. Okay, Benjamin, do you want to roll 2?
I got a 7.
7. Okay. Well, we have 2 choices here. So with a 1, your answer provided by Melly Doucette of Demiplane, fantasy game designer, or with a 7 from Nicholas, you could be fishmongers, or one of each.
I
I think fantasy game designers.
Yeah, I think
I
game
mean,
designers.
Because then we're
Okay.
just like 2 weirdos podcasting about game design using Magic Mouth. Everybody else is just like, who are these
Yeah,
people?
why do we care about this? Wait,
Yeah.
they're kind of
Yeah.
interesting.
Well, or it's just,
Or it's just for us.
just nobody listens to
just-
the podcast. We keep on promoting this podcast. Nobody listens.
Now, is it called a podcast
No.
because
okay.
we're casting Magic Mouth onto a single pod of
Stonecast?
and then we
Yeah.
and then we
makes sense.
throw it out on a line and we're casting it into a crowd so that people will listen to it.
I think probably makes more sense for us to place them surreptitiously around towns or stuff, so that people have to they walk by and they start hearing it's like, oh, these guys are still doing this.
Who's talking? Who is that? Oh, it's that. It's them.
It's those.
It's those. Whatever they are.
Right. The phantom voices. All right. Yeah. Okay. And now the next thing we get to roll for is, what is the age range of your characters? Again, you could both roll independently or just roll and then figure out what works best. And you determine this with the D8.
The Ocho. 3.
And
Okay.
2.
Okay, so a 2 is a teenager and a 3 is a young adult. So would you rather be teens that are stonecasting, podcasting, or young adults that are podcasting?
I think it's better as young adults, because then it's also adds an element of like, why aren't they doing something more productive with their time?
Okay, so the young adult Hexbloods, Ramman and Katniss, who are fantasy game designers. All right, now that we know all these bits of information, can you describe the physical appearance of each of your characters?
I think Dell's pretty pasty, kind of sandy hair, gets in his eyes a lot. He's on the younger side of young adult and is a little more naive to the world. Hasn't done a lot of real work.
Katniss, I think, kind of looks like Wednesday Addams,
Okay.
except that she
Christina
had-
Ricci or like this new Jenna Ortega look?
Jenna Ortega. I think
Topical.
Yeah, exactly. I'm trying to, ride that wave.
Bring it in.
Yeah. Except that more colorful. I think like still the pigtails and everything,
Sure.
but like kind of a cross between in that series Wednesday and her roommate, whose name I can't currently remember.
I haven't watched it either. So
Oh, it's a great show.
Great
I
show.
love it a lot.
I binged it all in one
Yeah,
night.
Exactly. That was one of those things.
Okay.
Can't remember the roommate's name, but I watched all of them.
That's what happens to me too.
Yeah.
I don't know. I hear Hexblood and I think of like a goth aesthetic. I know like the Wednesday Addams sort of look. Is it a goth aesthetic between the both of them together? Like, how is their relationship between the two of them? Are they just friends? Are they siblings?
I think
do they
we're
come from the same
Yeah, let's
Hexblood
be
community?
siblings.
I think we're siblings. If we're both Hexbloods, it makes sense that like,
Yeah.
I mean, we probably don't know or are separated from our hag mother at this point. But I think it makes sense for us to have been like abandoned or to have found our way into this town. And we're trying our best to fit in, but our best is very bad.
No, nobody likes it.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that like people hate us or anything, but we're not. It's just we're very weird.
Yeah, we're weirdos.
We're very idiosyncratic, and nobody quite gets that.
Like the Addams family.
Yeah,
Ah,
yeah.
ah.
All right. And if you had to describe each of your characters with 3 adjectives, what 3 adjectives would you use?
That's tough to come up with.
Yeah,
on the spot.
this is a good exercise. I'm gonna say naive. I'm going to say optimistic, and I'm going to say that's the third one. I can't think of the third one. Benjamin, think of it for me.
I'm too busy thinking of my own.
Okay, fine. What I say? Naive, optimistic, and foolhardy.
Okay. Good strong adjectives.
Thank you.
I'm gonna go with obsessive, preoccupied, and
It's the third one that gets
It
you.
is the third one
it's
that
the
gets
third
you.
one that gets you every time.
like a curse. obsessive,
a hex, maybe.
yeah.
Yeah.
obsessive, preoccupied, and edit out all this break.
Oh, sure,
Just
yeah,
all
of
the
course.
silence. Who needs the silence?
Um,
What you don't hear is that in every episode, every person does this, and there's a good
I'm
3
sure,
minutes
yeah.
of silence between every adjective. What was it?
Obsessive.
Obsessive,
preoccupied.
and
What would be a good way to summarize like eager to be liked?
Dane.
No.
Okay.
I don't
Kurt, you
seem-
got anything for us?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like, yeah, you figured doing this podcast would give you like a thesaurus in your mind. Okay, so someone who's seeking like approval
Mhm.
seeking.
Approval seeking. Yeah. Okay. So there we go. Because I think she wants people to see her and care about the things that she cares about. She's obsessive in the things that she likes.
Mhm.
She's preoccupied in that she's constantly thinking about them, even when she's
Mhm.
like engaged in some other situation. And then she's approval seeking because she wants everyone else to like the same things or to acknowledge her kind of.
Benjamin, did we create ourselves?
We basically. created ourselves.
Uh-oh.
We did it. We created ourselves.
So my question is, with Dane's character, it's Del Ramman is the full name that was given, and then for Benjamin it was just Katniss. Is Ramman kind of like a thing that just Del added on to his name, or is Ramman like the last name? Maybe Katniss doesn't like the last name, or I don't know. I'm just curious if you had any thoughts about that part of the naming convention.
I mean, I think that in her eagerness or their eagerness to be liked, I think Katniss is just like, no, I'm just Katniss. Like, is kind of going for a Madonna
Maybe.
thing.
Okay, I could kind of see that. Yeah, it's like it's a little sexier to just have a single name.
Mhm.
Like, no, I'm Katniss.
Yeah.
People know.
And
the
I'm
name
Del.
Katniss.
I'm just Del.
Or it could be something where like our dad, or had some, or like wanted to keep.
Listen. I
Like,
know
I take,
our dad.
like maybe I take more after our hag mother,
Yeah.
and like don't want
And
a surname.
That makes sense that we kind of have different dispositions, because
Yeah.
if I take after the dad and you take after the
Yeah.
mom, there you go.
All right. And of course, we like our NPCs on this show to have something cool on their person, whether it's a valuable item, a piece of lore, a secret, or maybe even an ideal or concept that they would ascribe to. So we determine this with a combo. So you roll a d4 first for the category, and then you roll a d6 for the particular thing.
I'm going to go for the D4 first. 4.
Which would be an ideal or concept.
Roll that too.
Okay. 1.
All right. Your answer provided by previous guest Bobby Angel. I have to be number 1 is the ideal or concept that Del Ramman ascribes to or values highly.
You got it.
I want to
And now for Katniss.
No one ever was.
All right. That is a 3 and a 5.
Okay, so 3 is a secret, and then a 5. Your answer was provided by previous guest Leroy Tut, which says undercover boss for the particular guild or organization. So what do you think that means for Katniss?
As in, Katniss is the undercover boss.
Yeah, apparently for a particular guild or organization.
Okay. So she's young, but not like kid young.
Mm-hmm.
And she's not well loved, I guess. I wouldn't say not well liked, but she's not well loved by her community that she lives with. So I would say that she secretly runs a role-playing group for the kids in town
we getting
that the
meta
parents
now.
don't know about, and would disapprove of their kids hanging out with her. The parents know that the kids like maybe going out and doing whatever, but they don't know that they're meeting Katniss to play games.
Interesting. And they're like, oh, she's got the Hexblood in her. She's up to no good. She's going to steal our kids, kind of a thing.
Stay away from them. Don't fill them with fanciful ideas.
Could very well instigate some sort of minor satanic panic in the town.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, being unfortunately used as a scapegoat or something like that for all the woes of the town. Okay.
And I think that for Del, he wants to be a part of this group.
Mm-hmm.
He's not, but he wants to be a part of this group, and he wants to be the best in the group, but he hasn't been invited because this is kind of...
So Del knows about it?
I mean, we're siblings, right?
Right.
And we do this show together about game design.
That's true. Yeah.
I feel like
true.
I would know about it.
That's true.
This is secret to the grander
right. Okay.
setting.
Yeah, not to you.
But not to me, and I'm a little resentful.
Maybe I'll call them like my playtest group, and that's why I keep them kind of separate
Oh.
from it, because it's like I'm testing the things we talk about on our
But
show.
as a game designer as well. Like,
Maybe I don't think of you that good of a
right.
game
No,
designer.
Wow.
are we just
okay.
playing ourselves?
Yeah, I
Are we?
mean, we just keep
We're just-
circling back to that
Are we
well.
just playing ourselves?
Wow. It's like, I don't know. This may, in fact, be the most meta episode of the podcast ever. It's crazy.
Welcome to Dispel Magic.
Yeah, I was going to say, now you're going to start trailing into like the introduction. The carnival music's going to start playing. It's going to be like, wait a minute. I thought I was listening to Sidekicks and Sidequests. Hold on. What's going
Bait
on?
and switch, Kurt. You're on our podcast now, baby.
What? And then the final question here in the NPC creation, we like to come up with a side quest that each of our NPCs offer up. Now, again, this has happened sometimes with pairs of characters. You can either assign like the same side quest together, so maybe both of you roll and choose which is the better of the two, or do you think maybe Dell and Katniss have their own different kind of side quests to offer up? If you have an idea, you can spitball that. Or if you want to test the fates, you roll a d12.
Got something brewing?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, kind of, because I was kind of thinking like your side quest might be to infiltrate my group,
Oh, okay.
but I don't know then what Katniss's side quest would be.
Mm-hmm.
And that also is kind of like I don't know. What do you think about that?
I like it. I think that I mean, I'd imagine your ultimate goal is to release this game.
Although the other thing is that it would be good to circle it back to the Stonecast that we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be something about like we're running out of jade or honeycomb, or it could be
Ah,
that
A fetch quest.
so it could be a fetch quest, or it could be about like nobody's buying the podcast in this town. Can you take it to the next major city, the next place over?
Okay.
now in terms of having access to the jade, we've talked about this on the show quite a bit.
Yeah.
That to cast the amount of magic mouth that would be needed for this podcast, we would need enormous amounts. And the best solution to that is the elemental plane of earth. So could we be trying to gain access to the elemental plane of earth?
Interesting.
That's certainly a much grander scale.
That
than
is.
if we go with that.
That is.
And we're kind of like
We're noobs.
two little dorks.
Yeah, we are
It's
two
trying
little
to-
dorks.
I feel like that's perfect in some kind of video game you've run where it's like these two little nobodies that are like, can you help us get access to the forbidden thing? And it's like, okay, sure, I'll accept your side quest. And then you get to the forbidden place and all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm finding all kinds of crazy loot to, keep for myself and then be able to bring back for the nerds who sent me on this mission to begin with.
I like it.
All right.
Okay.
All right, so that's what we're gonna go with. So
Yeah.
so it's like the two siblings together need the party's help to find some sort of entrance into the elemental plane of Earth in order to acquire the vast quantities of jade that they'll need to keep up with production, as it were, with the scale of Magic Mouth creation.
Yeah. We probably are beekeepers.
Yeah,
because we need the honeycomb, so that
we probably be
we got that angle covered, and then we just need the jade.
easy
I
enough.
see. Or you're pilfering from the local apiaries in town. There's like a notice board. It's like, my honeycomb keeps disappearing. These dang hoodlums trying to eat all the honey.
Honey eating hoodlums. I
It's
like
a
that
honey
out there.
heist, I tell you. They're
It's a
heisting
honey
my honey.
heist. There it is.
Yep. All right, so we got a really cool side quest. So we have to consider what is going to be the reward for our player characters should they undertake this mission and come back successful with the location of the entrance or the mechanism with which the siblings can get to the plane of Earth. What are they going to reward them with?
Producer credit on the podcast.
And if they're playing hardball, executive
Yeah.
producer.
Yeah.
Literally, that's the reward. So the players are going to be like, "What? That's it?"
Yeah. I mean,
it is very
Yeah.
funny. Like, it is
Yeah.
true.
I mean, like that's
That's a great one. I mean, not to get too real, but maybe some secret of the Hexblood. I don't know. Something that only
Well,
the,
we did have previous guest Dr. Paul Guestwicki, who is a professor of game design, computer games, and in-game design over at Ball State University, kind of talk about the nature of side quests and what they mean and like how they're supposed to like reveal truths about the character or the world. So the fact that these two siblings, the only thing they can think of is like, okay, you're producers on the podcast. And it's like, really? That's it? And so now it's like the players have had this whole journey to kind of realize of like, well, these two siblings are clearly idiots, or like they don't know what they're doing. And it's like, we really had to undertake this dangerous mission. We almost got crushed by several titans that wanted to smush us because we were invading their space or whatever.
These Zorns are nibbling at our heels.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
But at least Zorns you can talk to.
Yeah,
So.
that's true. All right, I mean, we'll find
Sounds
it.
good.
I think producer credit on the Stonecast is it. I think that's
it. That's the one.
Okay.
Because if the DM wanted to make that not terrible, he or she or they could just say the Stonecast ends up blowing up after they become producers on it, and all of a sudden they become like famous for being patrons of the arts or something.
Ooh, okay. Yeah, that's another good angle. Street cred. That's for sure always a good angle.
Get that name out.
A noble
there.
could be like, "Oh, that's my favorite Stonecast to listen to."
It's the exposure.
My name is Commander Shepard, and this is my favorite Stonecast in the Citadel. And then, of course, we have to consider the other side of the coin. What is going to be the consequence of failure or refusing the call to the adventure?
I mean, we are part hag.
Yeah, I could see us being the kind of people who hold weird grudges.
We just haunt them we like annoy them, and we're just a step behind them, like throwing a monkey wrench into their plans.
I can't picture these two up and leaving and like just
maybe not
making that their thing.
Yeah,
I could see maybe them cursing them so that they're bad at games.
Okay, you lose every game.
Like you just can't win games anymore. So like if people like to travel around and play cards in taverns or go to a casino and roll dice, they're gonna be bad at it because they've been cursed by these two Hexblood game designers.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, that's kind of cool. A low level hag curse, yeah.
Yeah, and like you could even tie into like you're gonna draw bad cards if you ever get the deck of many things.
Oh,
it's worse than it sounds.
It goes all the way down. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, interesting. I was also going to say, considering the angle of, since they're game designers, they make parodies or very similar likenesses to the characters in their game. If the game ever catches on and they go see it in another town, it's like, well, wait a minute, that character sounds an awful lot like me. Why is he making the dumb choices? Why does he sound like a buffoon?
Yeah, they're like the villains in whatever arc, like plot that we're running on our actual play Stonecast.
For some reason, I don't trust you, and I can't put my finger on it, but I feel like I've heard about you before, and I just don't like you.
You remind me of Dorlock the Dumb from my favorite Stonecast.
No, we're not going to give you this high, valuable contract mission for you to undertake for the city. I listened to the Stonecast. You have a very similar sounding name. How do I know you didn't rip it off from that Stonecast that's won many awards in our town?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
Well, we've learned so much about the Ramman Hexblood siblings that I think it's time to head into a segment that I like to call the Random Encounter. This random encounter is brought to you by Reaper Miniatures. They have been Texas Titans of the tabletop industry since 1994. They're right here in DFW, and they've got an amazing warehouse and game store. They make everything from paints to gaming accessories and stream on Twitch and YouTube with tutorials and interviews. Whatever system you're running, whatever game you are playing, Reaper has a mini for you. Every time you shop with them and spend $40 on your purchase, they're going to give you a cool mini as well. It's a mini of the month, and it's always something new, so all the more reason to shop often. I have been very blessed and very fortunate to get gift cards from Reaper Miniatures in the past, so I continue to be ever thankful for their continued belief in this humble podcast in the neighborhood. As well, Reaper Miniatures Bone 6 Tales from the Green Griffin was live on Kickstarter and was successfully funded, and if you want to hop on that bandwagon, make sure you go check out the backer kit for details so that way you too can get a whole metric ton of minis delivered to your door. If you visit my website or you go in the show notes below, you're going to see a special link in order to get over to the Reaper Miniatures website. And if you click on that, it's going to help support Sidekicks and SideQuests at the same time. By clicking that link, you're helping to direct traffic and show Reaper Miniatures how much of that traffic we bring their way. So the more traffic, the more that our Texas powers combine. So again, go check out that link on my website or in the show notes below in order to get your way over to Reaper Miniatures website, and be sure that you are following them on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, and YouTube. Bum. All right. So, this part is the roleplay vignette scenario that we like to test out the NPCs that we have made on this show. And so obviously with Dane having created Dell, and then Benjamin having created Katniss, question becomes, who should I be in this scene? Am I going to be one of my reoccurring podcast adventurer characters that's going to undertake the mission? Am I one of the kids, the play testers or whatever in the group? Or am I like someone in the town that's like stopping by and overhearing an episode of this fictitious Stonecast podcast thing? And so I'm just like, where's the voices coming from? And I'm having to, listen to this episode, riffed on the spot or something.
I like the idea maybe of playing one of your adventurers. I also like the idea of a parent confronting us
Ooh, that's fun.
about my secret role.
Bringing the panic part into it.
Yeah. I don't know. Do you have a preference?
I have no strong
kind of fun.
feeling.
It would
Yeah.
be kind of fun to play out that like part where we're like, yeah, you get a producer credit if you
Listen, what we're doing is worthwhile, and we need you to help. We know you're mad. We know you're mad at us, but listen.
That's it. Actually, it could be the adventure coming back from having done all that and discovering that the
reward
is a producer credit. Like
Okay.
that somehow we hadn't nailed that down. We had said something like, we'll give you the most valuable thing we can, and that's a producer. And we didn't didn't disclose that was a producer credit. So I like
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm into it.
Cool.
Okay, all right. So we have a couple of different characters to choose from at this point as to who you will have wanted to have sent off on the adventure. So we have Duncan, the recklessly brave adventurer for hire. He's happy-go-lucky, cheerful, disposition, chaotic good, that whole thing. We have Sonia, who's the warrior woman. She started off as a barbarian and multi-classed into a paladin who serves a god that redeems the undead. We have Korak, the lawful evil arcane trickster roguish dwarf. We've got Chrisley, who is the herbalist botanist wood elf druid who multi-classed into a cleric that serves living memory. And then finally, our newest PC that we made is Orion, who's an astral elf illusionist wizard. And if none of those sound good, then we could just make up a whole brand new one right here, right now.
Whoa.
Like number 3 would just kill us. Like if we suggested a producer credit after all that.
Yeah.
So probably either
one.
Yeah. I mean, 1 is good, especially if because I'd like to test how happy-go-lucky he really is.
I mean, he's lawful good. We sent him on chaotic good. We sent him on a whole goose chase. He's come back, and this is what you got. I mean, a title. It is a title, and those types generally like titles.
We'll see.
Well, we're picking number 1.
So where we last left our hero, Duncan, he had emerged back and was in the portside town, and he met this tabaxi who was doing like a magic trick show and needed Duncan to very quickly run and stop a captain who had won a prize but had forgot to sign the paperwork over for the prize. And so Duncan ran down and chased the captain down, got him to sign the thing, and came back. And then this tabaxi was in turn very thankful for Duncan's help. And so it was kind of left ambivalent as to what happened. And because of plot reasons, plot armor and all that good stuff, we'll say that in his hubris, Rearus, I think he went by, or Cirrus, the entertainer, ended up getting foiled somehow by Duncan. So he was not enticed into that particularly fiendish outcome. And so it's not too long after he's going further into the town, and he starts hearing people complaining like, oh, there are the voices again. And Duncan's like naturally piqued. He's curious. He starts going around, and it sounds like he's hearing like 2 people bickering and arguing, but also like laughing and having fun and like building on each other's ideas. And he comes up to this strange wall, and it just has these little mouths that are just talking back and forth at each other. There's a group of kids that are sitting down on the floor, and they're like listening with rapt attention. And so Duncan is like, childlike curiosity as well, decides to sit down and listen. And, it's probably a good hour or something like that of how long this thing goes on. And finally, at the tag end of the Stonecast, it says, and remember, if you want to find us, come meet us here. Some obvious location that Duncan will be able to go and find the siblings. And so maybe it's a maybe more rundown part of town, a small hovel, a hut, lean-to or whatnot. And Duncan will like rap on the door and he'll say, hello, hello, is this the siblings I heard from the magic mouths that were talking on the wall of the town? Hello?
It's a fan. A fan's here.
Long overdue at that.
Come on, come in.
Oh, okay. And then do you open the door for Duncan or should
Yeah, I'll run over and creak.
Oh, hello. Nice to make your acquaintance. My name is Duncan. And he'll pull out one of his cards and he hands it to Dell. And it says, Duncan, recklessly brave adventurer for hire. No feat too small, no task too daring.
Hey, an adventurer. We've been looking for one of those.
We have.
Yes, and so Duncan will look around inside this podcast Stonecast studio, as it were. What does it look like on the inside of this place? Is it like low to the ground, or what are you imagining?
We probably took up in like some hut that got abandoned on the outskirts of town a while ago.
Dell has lined the walls with thick mosses to
Mhm.
prevent audio reflections.
Right. And then I think it's probably just a bunch of like papers everywhere in
Mhm.
piles, books stacked up. It's just like,
Quill upon quill.
yeah, just like all of our different game designs in various states of disarray, dice, all that kind of playing cards, all that kind of stuff just laying around everywhere.
Little crudely shaped
Mhm.
sculpted caricatures on a grid, perhaps.
Like wood carvings or little stone statuettes and stuff?
Yeah.
So Duncan will kind of like examine all this and be like, wow, oh, very interesting. Wow, games, fun. And he smiles because Duncan's kind of like a child at heart, if you will, the old Fallout 3 perk, child at heart. And so he's just like, he's a little warmed and he's like, oh, this is lovely. How creative an endeavor the two of you are. The siblings that I heard from the magic mouths. Wow. He's just, taken aback.
Do you consider yourself a patron of the arts?
That's a great question. Well, I mean, and then he'll probably start rambling off on one of his many tales that he had before. Maybe the time he helped Lily the Narwhalicorn find her mate because he had to go into the Feywild to do that. Or he's been into the Underdark several times. And then he even says, and then when I was in the Astral Sea and I was mining and I went to a whole other realm. So he starts telling you all sorts of crazy, fantastical stories. Maybe it gives fuel for the siblings for any future endeavors that they decide to dream up or whatever.
Yeah, we're exchanging looks the whole time. Smiles creeping across my face because this seems like a perfect opportunity for us. I'm nervously flicking my sandy hair out of my eyes because I'm trying to get a good look at our would-be savior.
And so then, yeah, I guess you let him ramble for however long he's gonna ramble, and then he says like, I apologize. I was doing so much talking, and so
Very accomplished.
he'll say like, now I think I recognize the names, but please remind me again. Who do I have the pleasure of speaking with?
Well, I'm Del Ramon, and this is my sibling Katniss.
Pleasure to meet you.
Wonderful. Well, yeah, you said in your message that you left that, if you had questions or concerns or if there was anything someone needed help with or anything like that to come find you. And it's just part of my spirit and my characters that I just can't quite settle down, that there's always some next big thing for me to do. So is there something that I can help you with?
We always love listener feedback, don't we, Katniss?
We do. And you're in luck. It seemed like it had piqued your interest when I mentioned the phrase patron of the arts. That seems like something you would enjoy.
Yes, I do love a good song in the taverns, and well,
we have something better than that.
Even better than that.
Oh, really? What?
But we need your help to do it.
Okay.
We need you to pledge your support to our Stonecast.
Okay. And how do I do that?
A portal to the elemental plane of Earth.
Portal to the elemental plane of Earth. It's simple.
Oh, wow. Okay. And then Duncan kind of like scratches his head and is taken aback. He'll roll an Arcana check and we'll say like it's middle of the road in a way that he's like, well, oh, I mean,
Doesn't really understand exactly what that takes, but
yeah, exactly. He's like, well, I mean, I know there's planes to all the elements, but specifically to the Earth one. Okay. Well, unfortunately I don't have the means to just like make a doorway. I'm not a wizard or anything like that.
No, of course.
That just finding one, securing it for us, and giving some way of us having easy access to it. That's all we want.
It's not that hard. It's not that complicated. Find it, give it to us, and become really a part of a part of the
not say too
Oh,
much.
no, of course
Yes,
not. No, we wouldn't want to
Yes.
give away the big
Yes.
reward.
Duncan seems like the kind of person who's motivated by goodness rather than
Good rewards.
specific reward.
Yes, it is true that doing the service of generosity, of kindness, that certainly is a reward in and of itself. Okay, yes. And so
Oh, and think of all of the children that he would help by helping us with this. All of those children that you play test with.
I'm sure that upon wide release, it will manage to capture the imagination of an older audience as well. Let's not say anything odd.
Sure, of course. Duncan, not quite understanding what the siblings are talking about. It almost kind of like riddle-like in a way that he's not quite picking up on. But nevertheless, he'll say, onward, his signature catchphrase as he goes out the door, just seemingly like, okay, well, I've got my mission. And so we'll fast forward and say it's been some time, probably maybe like a month or so. And then finally,
Yeah, he's gone.
yeah, you think like hopes are up, and you'll see like a very ragged and tired Duncan like kind of come crashing through the door, and he's just like, oh, okay.
Katniss, Donald's back.
Is Donald his name?
I don't know. I can't remember. It's been a while.
He catches his breath and he says, the name's Duncan. It's on the card.
Right.
I've given you. And then he looks over and he sees maybe it's like crumpled up or ripped up or
No,
something.
we've used the back of it for notes.
There's like
Okay.
stats, strength, dexterity, constitution.
Yeah, and then Duncan just thinks to himself, why do they always mess up my cards that I give out? I spent so much money on all those cards. He'll reach into his pouch and he pulls out a scroll case and he unfurls it and he's like, okay. And so he goes into the whole drawn out tale of what it took to find this map of the local area and to then collect the rumors and all the research and everything he needed to do to find the nearest natural portal to the elemental plane of Earth. And he finishes the big speech and he's like,
Oh, very
right.
good.
And there we go. Yes. So I've helped you out.
Thank you.
Oh my
Thank you,
goodness.
Duncan.
This was amazing.
Can you give me another one of your cards, please?
Just one more.
Sure. And he'll reach in his pouch and pull out another one of his cards.
And then Katniss takes her quill, writes something on it, and hands it back to him.
And
And
so
here you go.
and then what does it read?
It just says credited producer on, and then the name of their podcast.
And then he'll look down at it, look at the siblings, look down at it again and be like, forgive me, friends. I don't understand. What does this mean? Have I been given a noble title of some sort?
It's the most valuable thing we could give you, Duncan.
The most noble title, a patron of the arts.
You are a major contributor to our Stonecast.
One of the major
contributors. Yes,
yes.
amongst others.
Yes.
Amongst others.
And so then Duncan will just kind of like look down at it and just be like, well, I thought being a patron of the arts would come with some sort of other benefits, but I guess if this is what it takes, then
Well,
guess
you
that's
can
what it
add that
takes.
to all your other cards too. It doesn't have to be just that one card. You can add that to
You
credit to
feel
everything.
free to just write down on each and every one at a time, executive producer.
And for the next, well, we didn't say executive, but that's
Sorry.
for the next year, every episode we record, we'll be sure to give you a shout out.
We're going to give you a little shout out. Doesn't that sound exciting?
Yeah. Okay. And so then Duncan just like for the first time in a while, seemingly maybe perhaps hasn't encountered a situation like this where maybe like the reward wasn't monetary or something like that. He'll just kind of like, learning a lot about himself from undertaking this whole month plus long journey and just kind of being like, all right, it's 1,000-yard stare, just like, all right, well, I must go. And very flatly, I must go. And then he just kind of leaves. And is there anything that the siblings will say or do as he's exiting and leaving their home?
Now, Katniss has already turned around and is starting to like write down notes on the next podcast episode.
I give him a stone and say, put this in a well or something.
And scene. All right, so we did it. We made it through the random encounter. So what did you think it was like getting to be meta characters as NPCs?
Yeah, I had a blast. That was fun.
Yeah, pretty good.
Finding the kind of similarity, we kind of turned into twins. We kind of mirrored each
We
other
did,
a little
yeah.
bit, which was great. I like that. I like mirroring.
Do you imagine that you might debut these characters in a game of your own, or maybe they get their own dedicated episode on Dispel Magic, where it's just like,
Yeah.
yeah,
I run a Dispel Magic inspired campaign. Like I'm building a new setting kind of with everything we've thought through in Dispel Magic.
Mhm.
And I do think it would be very funny to put in a, not necessarily Katniss or Dell, but characters modeled in that style that are
Mhm.
maybe even more explicitly Dane and I, because it's our friends. So it would be like extra stupid for them to encounter us in the game while we're also playing characters.
And I play in a Dispel Magic inspired game run by my friend Benjamin. And I think it would be a lot of fun to encounter
Yeah.
characters that really reflect both him and I in the game. But that's up to the DM of that game.
I'm
so.
actually going to really enjoy doing an impression of Dane. I do a lot of I do a lot of that when I'm doing an impression of Dane.
Awesome. Yeah, whether they continue on as Del Ramon and Katniss, or they just become Bane and Ren.
Den? Bane and Den.
Bane and Den. Oh, there you go. You just switched the letters. Yeah. Okay. Yeah,
Yep.
there you go. Perfect. Well, you already got them named. So awesome. Yeah. So final thoughts. We always like to, hear back any feedback or critiques on the podcast, the vibe check, and just, what did you think of your time on the podcast?
I was surprised with the turns that it took. Rolling these characters, really, you come up with some really interesting details that you have to justify, and it, the mental gymnastics that you have to take puts you in places you didn't think you'd be.
Yeah, really fun. I was worried about whether or not we would be able to come up with something interesting on the fly, but goofiness of it all clicked really quickly, actually.
The fact that we rolled game designer,
That helped.
that helped.
helped.
I think that was the clincher for how meta it got.
Yeah.
All right. Well, in the final moments of the show, I always like to leave the microphone, the stage, the platform, the soapbox over to the guests. So anything you have to plug, where can we find you online and all that good stuff? And any other passions or causes that you care about that we should know about, let us know.
Well, of course, Dispel Magic, our podcast where we overthink the magic of Dungeons and Dragons. I'm also on Dungeons and Dragon Types, which is an actual play Pokemon podcast. And you can find me anywhere and everywhere at Dane in Danger, where you can also listen to my voice acting reel. I'm a voice actor. I'm signed with an agency in San Francisco, so hit me up.
And you can find me online at sterlingvermin.com. And that's a good way to get to all my socials. I'm on Twitter a lot. I'm on Discord, a little bit on Reddit, and there's my site store. You can get to Dispel Magic through sterlingvermin.com. You can find my whole DM's Guild library of stuff. You can find blog posts. There might be something else there. I can't remember.
Prolific. A lot of stuff.
There's a lot of
going
stuff.
on.
There's a lot of stuff.
Scope creep.
Yeah, so if you are a fan of Dungeons and Dragons, which would make sense if you listen to this podcast, and you've been looking for a cool new class or some new races or new spells or anything like that, sterlingvermin.com is a good place to hang out.
Well, gentlemen, it's been an honor having you on my podcast as a fellow Twitter engager there and chiming in on your social media, letting you know, hey, I listened to the episode and these were my ideas and stuff like that. It's been cool to have you come on my show and get to try your hand at generating characters and getting an interview. And hopefully I get my turn on your show and we'll see what kind of magic we can overthink on your humble podcast.
I think there's a pretty good chance of that happening, Kurt.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Sidekicks and Side Quests. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast through Apple Podcast, Google Play, Spotify, and Overcast, or feel free to save the RSS feed to use the app of your choice. Visit our website, sidekicksandsidequests.com, for links, write-ups of the NPCs, and to learn more about the show and the guests who have been on it. To stay up to date and interact via social media, you can follow the podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Reddit by searching for SideKQ Podcast. I would love to talk D&D and showcase your fan art, stories of how you used our NPCs, discussions, and commentary. If you would like to hail the bard, simply send an email to sidekicksandsidequests@gmail.com. To help this show be the resource it's meant to be, I ask that you please leave a review on iTunes to help spread the word and share our podcast with your friends and family. Whether you're a veteran player or an aspiring dungeon master, or you've never played Dungeons & Dragons before, there's something here for everyone, and I want to hear about it. And finally, after 2 years, I've decided to open a Patreon for Sidekicks and Side Quests. If you love this podcast and you want to help us grow and expand our operations, I would appreciate it if you would go on over to patreon.com/sidekicks and side quests. No matter your lifestyle expenses, we have wonderful rewards at every level of Patreon membership tier. Your name on the wall of the levitating platter, a loud hurrah on the podcast, or the possibility to introduce an element of chance to NPC creation. Sidekicks and Sidequests is unofficial fan content permitted under the fan content policy, meaning I'm not approved or endorsed by Wizards. Portions of the materials used are property Wizards of the Coast, copyright Wizards of the Coast, LLC. Thank you for your support, and I'll see you at the pub next time.
Bar to rock on 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.